Trap, directed by M. Night Shyamalan, stars Josh Hartnett, Ariel Donoghue, Saleka Shyamalan, and Alison Pill. A father and daughter attend a pop concert where they realize they're at the center of a dark and sinister event. While I may not have watched many of M. Night Shyamalan's films yet, I've seen enough to know what the guy is about and how his filmography can be such a mixed bag. For this reason, I didn't know what to expect going into Trap except for what the trailers gave me. It could have went either way at this point in his career. The man doesn't have a set standard. He hasn't completely fallen off from what I believe, since he's still able to pump out movies so consistently. So with that being said, what did I think of this one? I'll start by talking about the performances. Firstly, specifically Josh Hartnett's. He really is pulling out all the stops here, basically having to balance a dual performance almost. This is common knowledge from what the trailers give us, but essentially not only is his character a well-rounded, happy-go-lucky family man, but he's also an infamous serial killer in the state this film is set in. When he plays the fatherly figure in the film, he does a pretty great job at letting himself lean into a completely goofy side, with a majority of his dialogue consisting of making dad jokes to his daughter. When he's not doing this, he will always deliver his lines in a tone that's almost too zany for him to act like a normal person, and as the film goes on, you come to realize this is less of a reason in the script's part, but possibly more depth into his character, as acting over the top could be a way to mask his sadistic side. Whenever he encounters people throughout the concert, I always felt like his banter, bouncing back and forth between the actors he shared these scenes with, really worked and made some of the humorous moments come off to seem likable and entertaining rather than seeming cringe. As the film goes on and he lets his mask slip more and more, I think he does such a great job at pulling off the darker side of him. He plays into the insane part of his character incredibly well, presenting you with these crazed expressions which you can laugh at times, but maybe also feel unnerved at the same time. There's moments where he showcases his brute force and how menacing he can truly be, even though the rating of this movie holds back on showing the audience any of the heinous acts his character committed off screen. As the second and third act kept going, he doesn't hold back with how expressive and overreactive he can be, and surprisingly I thought this worked well in the world the film was setting up. I was always entertained by him. He really knew how to chew up the scenery whenever he was on screen. As for a majority of the film, he is the main focal point of everything. The other focal point, of course, goes to Saleka Shyamalan. This film pretty much exists verbatim from M. Night himself, so that his daughter could have her own concert film, which at its core is admittedly a very sweet thing to do. The movie pretty much acts as an endorsement for his daughter's music. While personally, I'll say it's not the type of music I would listen to. If you're a fan of modern pop, it might be something you'd find entertaining. Now, that isn't to say the woman doesn't have merit, as hearing her songs which she wrote for the film, I'll say she has a good singing voice, and I would consider her to have talent as a musician, so it's no wonder why M. Night would want to give her more exposure through this. Around the second and third act, she takes more of a supporting role rather than being treated as a background character, and she does fine here. I wouldn't say her performance acting wise was incredible, but she did a pretty good job with the scenes she was given. It is hard to speak about some of the different things she has to do without delving into spoilers, but I'll just say that she did a good job at showcasing the different range of emotions that felt somewhat realistic. Hayley Mills gives a fierce performance as an FBI detective trying to track down the killer, who in this film has been nicknamed the Butcher. She delivers every line with such authority and is always so stern about the way she carries herself in every scene she's in. She gives off the impression as if she's been after the Butcher for a long time, maybe even after his first killing. They have this silent cat and mouse game between each other that leaves you guessing if and how it's ever going to end between them. I think she did a good job conveying all of this through her performance. While having a very minor role, I also liked Jonathan Langan in this. He may have two minor scenes in the whole movie, however he brought a great deal of comedic relief to the movie that already has some pretty decent comedy in it. He effortlessly makes himself likable, and he was another actor that I was always entertained by when he was acting alongside Josh Hartnett for the scenes they had together. As I mentioned, I think this movie managed to balance their elements of comedy and suspense pretty well. It's definitely a lot funnier than I expected it to be, and I swear that mainly comes from a lot of things Josh Hartnett does in his performance. When he talks to people in the best way possible, it feels like an alien learning to speak English for the first time. And again, this could be a layer to his performance of his character within the film. On top of this, his facial expressions were always able to get a chuckle out of me, as he shows so many different arrays of emotions and reactions that manage to never feel forced. As well as this, some of the scenarios, while sometimes lean into the territory of being far-fetched, do end up coming off as comedic. This film really leans into the camp angle that the screenplay presents, and I'm glad that it wasn't afraid to shy away from that, as sometimes modern audiences seem to have a hard time digesting the idea of camp, since so many movies that come out now are wrapped in layers of irony in an attempt to be on some type of common ground with its audience, which to me always feels so fake. That being said, I wouldn't call this film raw or powerful, but it just doesn't shy away from itself by presenting itself to be having a lot of really goofy moments, which I appreciated. I was surprised and impressed by a lot of the cinematography in this film, which shouldn't actually come as a surprise, really, since this film shares the same cinematographer as the movie Challengers. There were so many cool shots and different types of techniques used in this that were always satisfying to see. It could have been my eyes playing tricks, but I felt like at one point in the film it even features a split dioptic shot, which I always find to be insanely impressive and just overall cool when it's in any film. Along with this technique, there were other choices that felt right and added to the film. The main thing that features a lot are close-ups and extreme close-ups, purposely making you feel super claustrophobic and, well, naturally, trapped. Another thing this film does is sometimes have a character talk head on to the camera, not exactly into the camera as if to address the audience, but more so to pull the audience in and to feel part of the scene as if they're in the movie with the characters themselves. There's an aspect to this story that is both sad and sweet, and I don't know if this was the intention of Shyamalan, but naturally, this film is at its core a father-daughter story with an ounce of regret. I'm not going to claim I know everything about M. Night's personal life, but there's part of this movie that gives the impression as if he feels bad for not being part of his daughter's lives, probably due to him being away a lot of the time making films. It's a hard-hitting allegory to put in this movie, but at the same time warranted for the guy to make a statement like this through his art. So I do commend the guy for having the courage to incorporate an aspect like this into the story, as it felt like it added a good layer of depth to the whole picture. Overall, I had such a good time with this film, and I hope people that go see it can look past a lot of the tropey things that M. Night is known for, mainly the zany, unnatural dialogue between characters and his infamous twitch, which this movie, of course, has. On top of this, though, there is just so much fun to be had in a movie like this, where it knows a lot of the things within it is outrageous and not to be taken seriously, because it never fully does take itself seriously. And I never felt like this aspect harmed the film. With this being about a serial killer, the juvenile part of my brain maybe wishes M. Night had the freedom to give this an R rating, but I'd understand if he chose to have this more lighthearted for the sake of making it more accessible, as from the way he speaks, he's clearly passionate and proud of the project, as he should be, as I consider this film to be one of his better works. I'm giving Trapped 3.5 stars. It can be fun, and some things may not make sense sometimes, but the film lets itself loose by pulling you in with its unique concept, making you as a viewer feel like you're a part of everything that happens in that moment. Aside for some hokey writing and character choices, this is an original film that deserves attention if you want to see a very well done performance from Josh Hartnett, who presents a deeper look into the duality of man while also providing some quality entertainment. As this is an original film, I of course encourage people to go check it out on the big screen, as it's one of the features out this month that will leave a good impression on anyone that sees it.